Hi there and welcome to this video in the IBM Cloud Foundation Skills Series, and this is part 3, so the last part really of the little cluster of videos where we're looking at how to deploy an application that we've built into our Kubernetes cluster. So in this video what we're going to do is we're going to take the container image that we built in the last video and then we're going to use the kubectl CLI to actually run that container from the image repository on our Kubernetes cluster that we created 1 or 2 videos back. What we're then going to do is actually expose the application to the world, and we'll just show you that running in a browser as well. So this is a quick rundown of the commands that we're going to be using. So we're going to be logging into our IBM Cloud account through the CLI and then just targeting the right region and our resource group. I'm not going to show you how to do that on video because that's fairly straightforward. What we're then going to do is log back into our container registry, and then we're going to I'm just going to show you my image list just to show you that the image is still there. Then we're going to be using these 3 kubectl commands. So the first one is going to actually run a deployment called example health. It's going to be linked to this image, and that's the image that's within my container registry. So again, you may need to just amend some of these commands to if your container registry is in a different region, but we'll come to that as we go on. What we're then going to do is expose the deployment. So we're going to use node ports to actually expose the deployment in this instance, and then we're going to describe the service, and then we're going to use that information to actually look at our application running on through a browser. So without further ado, let's get to our command window. Okay, so here I am in my command window. I'm actually logged into IBM Cloud through the IBM Cloud CLI at this point. The first thing I'm going to do is just make sure that I'm connected to my IBM Cloud image repository as well, or container repository I should say. So I'm just going to type in IBM Cloud CL login. So the CL, remember, is the container registry plugin for IBM Cloud. And you can just see that it's logging in there. And again, you might see slightly different values here depending on your region around the world and where your container registry actually is. I'm obviously in the UK, so it's showing up as a UK IBM container repository instance. Okay, so the next thing we actually need to do is connect to our Kubernetes cluster as well. So I'm just going to navigate to my browser. So here you can see my cluster. My cluster's up and running within my IBM Cloud account at cloud.ibm.com. And if you actually click your access button over here, or access on the list here, you can then see that there are some steps that you need to do just to access your cluster from the command line. So first of all is download the CLI tool. So hopefully you've already done that. So what you should have is the IBM Cloud CLI, and you'll also have the kubectl tool as well, which we will need. Then there's just some information here about logging into your IBM Cloud account using IBM Cloud CLI, and again we've done that. So this is really the 2 important steps here. So the first one is setting the Kubernetes context to your cluster in the terminal session that we're running. So this is basically just making sure that whenever we type kubectl or we start to use the Kubernetes service plugin within IBM Cloud, we're actually talking to the right Kubernetes cluster. So again, your command here will be slightly different because this is the name of my cluster within IBM Cloud. So yours will be different there. So all I need to do is just copy that, go back to my terminal window, paste that in, and it's just going to give me some configuration there. So there we go, we can now see that content has been added. So as it says here, I can now execute kubectl commands against my cluster. So if I type in, for example, kubectl get nodes, as it suggests there, then it will return the nodes within my cluster. So you can see that because this is a free cluster, I've actually only got one node here, but you can see its private IP address. You can see that it's ready. You can see how long it's been around for, and also the version. There's one other command, so we can verify that you can connect. I've already basically verified that with that other command, but we can run this one as well just to see what this gives us. And again, what this does is it actually shows you the current context, i.e., which Kubernetes cluster am I actually attached to at this point in time. Okay, so that's all great. So that means that I can actually talk to my Kubernetes cluster, which is one thing I wanted to do. So I'm just going to clear the screen, tidy things up here. Right, okay, so let's get on with actually deploying this onto my Kubernetes cluster. First thing I'm going to do though is just very quickly check the name again of my images. So I'm just going to do an IBM Cloud CR container repository plugin and just do an image list. So that's just so I can see the name of my image because I'm going to need that for the next command. So there we go, and see my my image there in the repository and also the tag. So the next command is me actually using kubectl for the first time to actually get this thing running on Kubernetes. So we're going to create a Kubernetes service. So we're going to use kubectl run or example health. So this will be the name of the service, and then the name of the image. So the image equals, and it's going to be basically the name up here. So uk.icr.io/example health, and then the tag as well. So there we go. That's we need for that. So this is actually creating the service for us, or deployment for us. So we can see that the deployment has been created. Now the other thing to notice here is that the kubectl has actually told us that run example health. So it's actually telling us that the run command is deprecated in this version. So it's just something to bear in mind for next time around. Okay, so now we have our service up and running, our deployment rather is up and running. So you can see that it's been created. So the next thing to do is actually deploy it, or actually expose it to the world. So this is where we use another command, so kubectl expose. So we're going to expose a deployment, and that deployment's name is example health. So the type is going to be node port. So there are different types of or different means to expose. We're using node port here because we're on a free cluster and it's the only one that's actually supported. You probably wouldn't want to use node port for production in a production cluster with multiple worker nodes, because it only exposes it on one particular host at a time. It's better to use load balancer as a type because that will give you far more resilience. But as I say, because this is a free cluster, we're limited to just using node port. So we're going to use type node port, and then we're going to specify port. So port is 3000. The name is going to be the name of the deployment is going to be example, or service rather, is going to be example health service. There we go, example health service, and then we give it a target port as well. 3000. Now again, you can actually put all this into YAML files as well, so you can have a YAML file for your deployment. We'll perhaps show you how to do that in a later video. Using YAML files does make things easier, because obviously you can type things once and then just use that file again and again. Anyway, so we hit enter on this, and this will create our service. Okay, so my service has been exposed, and now we just need to check that the service is actually running. So one last command here. So kubectl describe service, and so example health. we go. So let's just give it some details. Okay, so now we can see where our service is actually up and running. So we've got confirmation that it's running. Let's go and have a look at it running on our browser. So there's a couple of bits of information that we need to be able to do that. First of all, we need to take a note of this node port number. So this is the port that this application is actually running on my cluster. So 32456. The other thing we need is the actual public IP address of my cluster as well. So if I just switch around to my IBM Cloud account and I go down to worker nodes, then I can see that the public IP address of my worker. So again, because this isn't because this is a free cluster and I've only got one worker node there and it's not running on a load balancer, then I need to actually take the IP address of the worker that it's running on. So in this case, it's this 169.57.99 address. So let's copy that. Let's pop that into my browser up here and just put a colon. So then I just need the my node port address. So again, let's just copy that. So 32456. So you can see there, it's already populated it for me. 32456 login.html. So let's just press that, and there we go. We can see my example health application is now running. So I can just put in some details here again. Again, it's all no real password settings in there, and there you can see my my service is now actually up and running. Okay, so there we go. So we've covered all. So what we've basically covered over the last 3 videos is actually creating application code. Although we didn't actually create the code, we've downloaded the code from a GitHub repository, and that was obviously for the My Health application. We then created a Docker container from that application code. We then took that Docker container and uploaded it to the IBM Cloud Container Registry service, and we then deployed the container via a service onto our IBM Cloud Kubernetes service. So again, these useful links, if you wanted to actually run through all of this without looking through all the videos, you can have a look at a document that I've written, which is in my GitHub repository, which is the top link there to Kube's My Health. And if you want to go and grab the application code, then that second link there, node.s2i-OpenShift, that gives you the actual code for the application that we've looked at. Okay, so that's the end of this video. I hope you found it useful and you've been able to take your first step into deploying a container and running it on Kubernetes. Thanks again for watching. There are lots more videos in this series if you haven't already seen them. So if you'd like to, please feel free to subscribe to my channel. But that's all for now, and hopefully we'll see you next time.